Thanks, Ms. Thon and the team from Anphabe for having me here today, and to all of you for taking 30 minutes out of your day to listen. So, I'm Nakul, and I lead our team for Workplace by Facebook, which is about a one-year-old solution from Facebook that's allowing companies to work differently. One of the things that's quite unique about Facebook as a company is our company culture. Right? We're less than 15 years old, but we think that our culture is one of the key drivers of our innovation over the last 14 years. And so what I want to talk to today is some of the ways that Facebook defines a specific company culture and how we use culture and engagement to drive innovation from employees. So just for a quick quiz and a quick show of hands, how many people here today feel that it's hard to define a consistent culture for your team, your department, or your entire company? Okay, not too many. How many people find that it's hard to innovate, or that you wish your company was better at innovation? Okay, I do. I guess not sure why everybody else came. It seems you guys know it all. But look, it's something that we've struggled with at Facebook for our entire existence. And we think that there are really three themes or three tenets that drive why it's difficult to navigate the future of work. These are certainly themes that have applied to us as Facebook as we were growing from a startup to a pretty large company now. And we think these are probably themes that impact other companies as well. So the first is company complexity. Take Facebook as an example. We're only a 14-year-old company. In the last 6 years alone, we've grown from just 3,500 employees to over 20,000. We've grown from having one office to having over 50 offices and data centers around the world. And at the same time that we're doing this, we've also acquired a number of companies. We've acquired very popular apps or independent companies like WhatsApp or Instagram or Oculus, and we're trying to figure out how do we integrate those companies enough so that they add value to us and we add value back, but that we don't disrupt or thrash what they were doing, which made them attractive to acquire in the first place. The second is that technology is changing at a mind-boggling pace. And I think there's really two reasons that this is relevant for companies. The first reason is that if you look at the apps that most people use in their personal lives, whether it's Telegram or Viber or Zalo or Facebook or Messenger, these apps get better every week, at the very least. At Facebook, we actually ship updates to our software code every few hours. So if you're using the Facebook app or the Workplace app or the WhatsApp app, even without downloading a new version, we might ship an update in the background that gives you another feature, or some new functionality, or makes the apps work better, right? But if you look at the apps and the technology that people are using at work, most people, they're using technology that feels 10 or 20 years dated, right? It doesn't get updated at that same speed. That creates a little bit of a dissonance for employees. The second reason the second trend is important is that disruption allows for and sorry, Sanjay, I know you mentioned earlier you didn't want to hear that word again, but disruption creates an opportunity to build new markets, right? If you think about Uber with respect to transportation, right? The third theme, and I think there's been a lot of talk about this today, is just the changing dynamics of the workforce. We heard millennials a lot. It's certainly a buzzword. I think Thon talked about the worker 4.0. And so millennials or workers 4.0 or whatever you want to call them, they really do have a different expectation when they come to work. They expect to move fast, they expect to be empowered, and it's not uncommon that they expect to have an open dialogue with their CEO or leadership team, which might be very different from previous generations of workers. So let's dive into this a little bit more. Company complexity. This is the Facebook thumbs up that you're probably familiar with. This is at our headquarters in Menlo Park, California. As I mentioned, in the last 6 years, Facebook has grown from 3,500 employees to over 20,000 employees. A big challenge for us was not only defining the initial company culture, but as we were adding team members around the globe, in Tokyo, in Sao Paulo, in Mexico City, it was also how do we take the culture we've defined and then scale it out, right? As we were growing from one office to 50 around the globe. And if you look, right, this is pretty interesting. This shows the largest companies by market capitalization over the last 15 years. If you look at, it's last year, it's a year dated, but if you look at the bottom row, it's all technology companies, right? It's Apple, Alphabet, which is Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook. Facebook didn't even exist in the year 2001, right? So when the top row here, Facebook wasn't even around. And Microsoft, to their credit, they're the one company that has sort of persisted on this list. Can you raise your hand if you've read this book by Christian Claytonson, The Innovator's Dilemma? No? I highly recommend it, really good book. But one of the premises of the book is that all companies are destined to fail. So what you see on the previous slide, Christian doesn't even think of as a surprise, right? He thinks this is expected. And us as Facebook, we are constantly paranoid about this. We know this is true, and it keeps us up at night. We're constantly thinking about how do we innovate, but also how do we create a culture that allows us to innovate. And Christian is not alone. Don talked about a similar stat. This is a study from Deloitte that 40% of the top companies, top 250 companies as they exist today, will cease to exist in their current form in 10 years. Right? So we have to innovate. Companies have to create a new way of working and create culture that allows employees to innovate. Going back to the slide you saw earlier, I mentioned that Facebook is constantly paranoid about this. This is, again, a sign at our headquarters in Menlo Park, California. What a lot of people don't realize is what's on the back of that sign. So our headquarters in Menlo Park is actually the old headquarters of Sun Microsystems. Now, Sun Microsystems was a tech behemoth in their day that is no longer really so relevant, to be honest. And we've kept this sign as the back of our sign for two reasons. The first reason, it's part of our hacker culture, where we like to reuse and recycle. So we simply turn the sign around, saves us some money. But the second reason, which is more profound, is that this serves as a physical reminder to all of us at Facebook that we need to constantly be thinking about the next thing, constantly be thinking about how we harness the power of our collective workforce. Here's another physical picture. This is our office space. So this is actually a new building just across the street from the old building, which you saw in the previous slide. And it might be hard to tell here in the picture, but you can maybe sort of see that the ceilings are unfinished. So I'd love, maybe people can volunteer some guesses as to why they think the ceilings are unfinished. Any ideas? Feel free to shout something out. Never finished. Yeah. So that's the spirit. So we like to say at Facebook that the journey is 1% finished, which means we always have more work to do. Even as we celebrate milestones or small victories here and there, there's still way more work that we have to do. And there's some other things I think are interesting about our physical workspace. So one, we try to capture humility, right? One of the things you might notice here is that there's no private offices. So everyone at the company, including our CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, sits at one of these plain, kind of ordinary white desks. We do have offices, so if you can reserve, we have shared offices that you can use if you need to have a meeting and it's sensitive or confidential, but the default is open, right? Physically open and metaphorically open as well. And a lot of transparency, right? So you see this gentleman walking along here. Actually, anyone in the company can bring guests, whether it's customers, friends, family members, log them in, and we can walk freely around, and I've brought my parents and other friends to walk in the headquarters, very near where Mark Zuckerberg sits or Sheryl Sandberg sits. And they don't go hiding behind closed doors. And we're empowered as employees that we're going to use good discretion and not bring competitors into the office, let's say. And other things that we do at Facebook, we have a Q&A every Friday with our CEO where anybody in the company can get up and ask him a question. And nothing is off limits. Sometimes people ask silly questions. They ask what it's like to be a new father. Sometimes it's very sensitive or more profound, provocative questions, and nothing is off limits. In fact, when someone asks a really challenging question, Mark will usually applaud that person on the spot and thank them for having the courage to get up and ask that tough question. Second trend we talked about, the pace at which technology is increasing is just mind-boggling. Right? This is what most of us look like today. I'm glad to see not so many phones out in the audience today, so thank you for that. But most of us can't go 5 minutes, maybe 5 seconds, without checking our apps, right? Our messaging apps, our WhatsApp, Viber, Zalo, Telegram, Facebook, whatever it is, our SMS, our email. And most of us carry multiple devices, right? Perhaps multiple phones, or maybe a phone and a tablet, or maybe a phone and a tablet and a PC. And this is just increasing, right, as we have younger generations. I think Nin from INSEE mentioned an example, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing, but her 3-year-old son knows how to use Siri on her iPhone and start playing YouTube videos. That's just mind-boggling to me. So what did you see on just the previous slide? I just flashed it for a second there. But what did you see? Can you just shout out maybe some words of what you saw? Or descriptions? So I'll play it one more time. Bus, blue, van. Yeah, so I just played that for a few milliseconds, but in just that limited amount of time, you're able to process and retain something. It turns out our brains are hardwired to respond better to more immersive types of content. And so the human brain processes images 60,000 times faster than just text. Right? And so if we didn't have these apps that a lot of us use in our personal lives, and I mentioned Facebook, Zalo, Viber, etc., we wouldn't be able to capture and retain all the information at our fingertips. It would literally be impossible. Right? And so we think that organizations, and Facebook, we certainly embrace this. We do a lot of visual content, a lot of live streamed meetings. Oftentimes when we have meetings, we will live stream those meetings back into Workplace, as long as they're not sensitive, so anyone in the company can then follow along to that meeting, instead of trying to read a more dry summary of meeting notes. Right? And this is the trend we see across the internet. If you think about the internet 10 years ago, the internet was basically a bunch of text-based hyperlinks. And a post on Facebook 10 years ago, or anywhere, frankly, would have been primarily text. If I visited Italy, I would probably say, hey, Italy is beautiful. 5 years ago, it really moved, 5 to 7 years ago, into photos, really dominating. Today, we are in the era of video. There's over 8 billion videos of 8 billion hours of video content uploaded to Facebook every day. And as we speculate as to what the future looks like, we think it's a combination of VR and virtual reality and augmented reality. It doesn't mean necessarily super high-tech devices, but even something like a 360-degree photo, which we're seeing an explosion of on Facebook today. But think about this and how you experience your consumer lives versus the tools you use at work. Right? Raise your hand if most of the communication in your company is primarily text-based. And so we think there's a disconnect there, and that's what we're trying to solve for, partially with Workplace, but we think it's key to driving innovation within a company. Right? Imagine if, let's say this projector or this screen was broken. If you needed to report that to your supervisor or someone in the company, you probably have to get out your PC, open up your email, you have to describe exactly where this is, in which hall it's in, the northwest corner of the wing, and then you send it and you hope that it gets responded to. With the more modern tools that we use today, and at Facebook certainly we have these, and I'll show you some examples, I can just pull out my phone, snap a photo, tag a geolocation to it, and then send it to the relevant group so someone can start actioning it right away. And that's really part of our culture. We say that nothing at Facebook is somebody else's problem. We see often that if something is broken, even literally a projector, and someone posts about it in a group, very often someone who it's not their core job will raise their hand or just go and fix it. Expectations are changing. So we talked about millennials, we talked about workers, generation 4.0. They really have a different set of expectations when they come to work. Right? So millennials, if not today, very soon in your organization will be the majority of workers. Right? These are individuals, these are children, they were children, who were told for their entire lives that they could do and be anything that they wanted to. They grew up with a mobile device in their hands, like Nin's son, since 3 years old, right, from day one, and they are fiercely individualized thinkers. In fact, the way that they blend in is by standing out. Right? And so you need a different way of building culture and motivating these employees. They expect, like I said before, to be empowered. They expect to have an open dialogue with their CEO, and most likely, they don't use email. They don't check email. Maybe you try to make them use email at work, but they certainly aren't pulling out email and sending an attachment to their friends. Right? That concept is unheard of to them. And so, again, companies have to constantly reinvent the way that we work. This is something that we have posters like this up along the walls at Facebook, and this is something we talk about with Workplace as well. But we really think, and at Facebook, being candid, I think we've always been on the right-hand side, but we're very paranoid about devolving onto the left-hand side. And so we constantly remind ourselves of this. For a lot of more traditional organizations, as they have increasing proportions of millennials in their workforces, we think they don't have any choice but to move from the left to the right. And I'll talk about just a couple of examples from Facebook, but fixed versus mobile. When I joined Facebook just almost 5 years ago, I was surprised that I didn't get a desk phone. At my previous employer, we had desk phones. At Facebook, we don't have desk phones. They gave me a mobile phone, right? So one, this is probably more practical, it turns out, but it also signals to employees that you are mobile. You can be anywhere, right? You can work from anywhere. Multiple sources versus a centralized platform. So we don't use many different communication tools within Facebook. We use Workplace, which is basically a private version of Facebook. But this happened very organically within the company. It happened because 6 years ago, when we created Facebook groups, our employees said, wow, Facebook groups are so much more useful than email distribution lists. And they just started creating secret Facebook groups, much like your employees are creating Viber groups or Zalo groups today, I'm guessing. Very open and democratic, we talked about this. We try to get rid of silos, very connected. Even though we have many different teams at Facebook, most communication happens in open groups within the company. So take Instagram as an example. Of course, the Instagram team would have closed communication that happens amongst themselves, but they also have an open group, which is Instagram feedback. And any employee can go in there and give very candid, often constructive, sometimes borderly negative feedback on how they can improve the product. And we welcome that. And so increasingly, the new normal is that companies have to build culture in order to uncover innovation. And so I have a few examples that I'll highlight from Facebook. One is about values, second is about engagement, third is about inclusion, and fourth is just ease of use. So values, and I heard this being talked about in the previous panel, but values are very, very important to us at Facebook, and it's not just lip service. It's not just something we talk about. This is really in the core DNA of the company. We feel at Facebook that values can guide people's behavior if there isn't someone who's there to explicitly guide or tell them what to do, right? So especially it guides behavior in times of uncertainty. And I'll quickly talk through these. So build social value. It's not just about networking with your friends, right? When we talk about build social value, things like safety check, right? Which in the event of a natural disaster, people can check in and confirm that they're safe. One interesting thing we also say about values is that they have to be not controversial, but they have to come at the expense of something else. So if it's for example, our CEO often says, a value such as be honest wouldn't make much sense because that's what we expect of all of our employees. That's not even controversial. That doesn't come at the expense of something else, but building social value does. When we build products like Safety Check, we're investing very expensive engineering resources to build that product instead of building something that generates revenue, right? Moving fast, this is another good example. In fact, the motto used to be move fast and break things. We changed it, and now it's officially move fast with stable infrastructure, which is not quite as catchy. But the theme here is moving quickly and don't wait to have a perfect solution. Move fast in the interest of failing faster and learning faster. And so if you move fast, you might ship a product experience that's not perfected yet. Or you might enter a market before you have a fully thought out strategy, right? And so all of these we think are controversial in that respect. And when we talk to other companies, we encourage them, as you're thinking about values, think about what would you be willing to give up in order to get this value. I showed some of the other physical representations of some of the tenets of our culture. We also have these physical signs, which is very ironic for a tech company, but we have these signs all over our campus. Some of them are just silly, some of them are fun, some of them are ironic, but the ones that are most profound to me are the ones that are just the white border, or the white background with the red text on front. And many of these, if not the 5 official values, these are other values that we hold near and dear to our heart. And you can see that one. I love that one. Nothing at Facebook is somebody else's problem in the middle. So engagement. I know this has been a hot topic today, and it's just a hot topic generally these days. One of the core ways we drive engagement at Facebook is by using our own tools to run the company. For 6 or 7 years, we've been using Facebook and Messenger as the core way of communicating within the organization. When you join Facebook on the first day, the first thing that happens is you'll get added as a friend by many different coworkers who, honestly speaking, are not your friend. I found it to be very strange when I first joined Facebook. We've now separated this out into a separate product experience called Workplace, but we think this is a core driver of our engagement. Again, when someone in the Japan office posts an update about something happening in Japan, our team member, if he's subscribed to that group in Mexico City, will see a button that says translate that post to Spanish. So this just really makes the company feel smaller, right? It reduces the distance between the leadership and the frontline employees, which we think is really, really key to success. I'm going to share a video from one of our partners, which is Starbucks, and they're going to talk about how they build community and how they drive engagement using Workplace as well.
In January, we implemented Workplace by Facebook. Now think of Workplace by Facebook as a private Facebook for Starbucks partners to communicate and share information. Workplace allows us now to stream live open forums and have real-time dialogue with our store managers. We launched this in January with a live open forum hosted by Howard and myself with all store managers in the US. That's what you see up here on the screen. This was actual live open forum in January. And you can see by this live video, we are getting real-time comments, hearts, thumbs up, sometimes a thumbs down, mostly thumbs ups, and store managers asking us questions. Now this was a new experience for both Howard and myself. But we have now started doing these Workplace live open forums with our store managers every month. And store managers have now found a way to create community and better connect with us. Some recent examples. About a month ago, a store manager posted on Workplace. They posted a post that said that they are selling more than 20 beverages a day that are not on our official beverage menu. They are beverages that were featured on Instagram. How many people use Instagram to get your beverage? See, all kinds of beverages on Instagram. Well, they're selling 20 a day. They're not sure they have the right recipe. Well, within 24-hour period, nearly 40 other store managers also posted and said, I'm selling 15 of these a day. I'm selling 30 of these a day. And then that evening, our category marketing team saw the volume of posts and how much this beverage featured on Instagram was selling in our stores. And they made a decision that night and posted back to store managers by the next morning that they had made the decision to add this to the official beverage recipes, something that could have taken weeks, if not months, to happen before Workplace, happened in one day. That is creating visibility with our store managers that's enabling us to have more velocity in the way we make decisions so we can better serve our store managers and our partners in the stores.
Yeah, so I love that example. One, because it's kind of like the best possible advertisement for Workplace. I wouldn't have played this, but I saw the Vina Milk video and I felt that we had to play this one. Just kidding, but it's a great example, I think, because it really showcases how companies, and Facebook ourselves, we try to do this, reducing the distance between the leadership and the front lines, right? We worked with the team at Starbucks closely before they launched Workplace, but they would have never predicted this example, right? So even though we tried to plan with them workflows that we would move to Workplace, they could have never predicted this one. Great. So last theme is ease of use. You know, Facebook as a technology company, we're very focused on ease of use. And so I'll share a couple of examples quickly. This is a bot that we have in Facebook's Workplace. We have over 100 bots. It's called the recruiting bot. We are hiring like crazy, growing from 20,000 employees to more. Every week alone, I do at least 4 or 5 interviews. And 30 minutes before the interview, I get a message on work chat that's automated that says, here's your upcoming interview. Here's the candidate's name, resume, the position they're applying for. And so I can go in fully prepared and ask the right questions. And then after the interview, 5 minutes after, I get a message asking me if I want to submit a hire or no hire decision. So I don't have to go to another tool. It allows us to really move much more quickly, and it's much more easy than having to go into a bespoke tool to enter feedback. Another example in a very different context, think about a technology company or a company that might have factories. Yeah. And so as an example, let's say someone posts in the Menlo Park factory group, hey, the Roboter 2KR something or other is broken and needs to be recalibrated. They tag the repair bot. They attach a photo. And this is similar to what I was talking about earlier about attaching a photo of a broken screen, right? And then the repair bot says, hey, I'm working on it. On the back end, sends a message to the person who's the on-call engineer, and it says, May has reported an equipment in the factory. It uploads the picture. Can you take a look? The person just has to pick between 2 pre-populated answers instead of typing a new message. And so it just enables a much higher velocity of getting things done and, debugging issues. Great. So to close it up, just want to encourage all these organizations. We heard some other people talking about moving quickly. I think for me at Facebook, that's the core thing that allows us to have a unique culture that also fosters innovation. We try to make decisions very, very quickly. And so, yeah, thanks for taking the time to listen.
Yeah. Có rất là nhiều ví dụ hay về cái cách Facebook phát triển văn hóa của họ, nhưng đặc biệt cái message này rất là hay, đúng không ạ? Move fast. Chúng ta cũng sẽ có thời gian có 2 câu hỏi với Naku. There would be 2 questions with you from the audience. Mình sẽ ưu tiên ai giơ tay nhanh nhất ạ. Các bạn cũng có thể hỏi bằng tiếng Việt và chúng tôi sẽ dịch sang tiếng Anh ạ. Hello, yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. Really interesting. My company really using Workplace right now. Can you share from your own experience? Because I noticed that in Facebook, it seems that you incorporate Workplace into your daily activity. It's not just a site, kind of social network. So in my company right now, normally people will post like when they go for a drink, when they go for a vacation, they post picture mainly for that use. Can you share some of the tips on how to incorporate more and encourage more people to use Workplace as a normal work tool? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, and we can definitely sync
Vâng,
up
và một phần quà từ
after this as
Sinestar
well.
cho câu hỏi vừa rồi.
Just curious, sorry, did you say there is a lot of social posting happening and not enough work posting, or the other way around? More social, yeah. Look, I think honestly speaking, this is a challenge for us as the Workplace team, because at Facebook, we've been using Workplace for 6 years, very organically and very naturally for work. I think for a lot of other companies, when they get access to Workplace for the first time, it does require a little bit of shifting the employee's mindset. And one thing I often say when I'm talking about Workplace, I have my first slide says Enterprise Social Network with a big X over it. Because we don't think you need another social network for your employees. For us, this is about really getting work done. So I can definitely share some tips and some guidance after this, but I think the first thing is that the leadership team thinks of this as a work platform and starts leading by example, right? So the example of Starbucks, the CEO doing a monthly town hall where he shares a recap of the last 30 days and his priorities for the next 30 days, right? Sharing examples where they decided to officially make a beverage that was on their unofficial beverage menu and speaking to the quantitative, the revenue impact that had, I think will help to start opening people's eyes as to how they can use this for work rather than just, happy hour pictures.
Actually, Facebook Workplace is a very transformational platform, new platform to change the way we communicate internally. So if any one of you here are interested in that, of course, like Naku would have a lot of private time with you. So we would have one more question from the audience. You already asked here, so let me priority here.
Hello. I'm from a tech company, so my question is about turnover. I think for a tech company in general, turnover is quite a challenging problem. I remember, not correctly, but from an HBR article, the average time an employee stay in even big companies like Google, Facebook, or Uber in Silicon Valley, those like have very good perks and have spent a lot of time in staff engagement are less than 2 years. So, in your opinion, is turnover a really issue that we have to spend time reducing it, or we should embrace that is a fact and we need to deal with how to manage when that happens?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not an expert on the topic, but my personal view is that, that shouldn't be I don't think turnover necessarily needs to be the end goal, right? I think employee satisfaction is probably a good intermediate goal, and that will ultimately lead to less turnover. But I think it is absolutely something that companies should focus on, right? In fact, some of the companies that we work with when they're deploying Workplace, we try and set certain KPIs. For example, can we aim to reduce turnover? Or can we aim to increase employee satisfaction? Or can we aim to increase scores around how excited or passionate someone is to work at the company? Or how aligned they feel with the company's mission? Or even their speculative answer to a survey question, for example, how long do you intend to work at this company? So yeah, I think it is really important.